G'day ladies and gentlemen, ScottyD here from the Australia's Tabletop Wargaming Network, and welcome back for another installment in our Wargaming Highlights series. Alrighty everyone, welcome back to the ATWN for another installment in our Wargaming Highlights series, where this series is our battle reports series, where we do maybe a gaming day, which is going to be what this video is about. I've got another gaming day report for you, or it's our version of battle reports here on the network, where we do some nice quick easy battle reports in less than half an hour for you guys, so that you're able to get a synopsis of a whole bunch of games played and seeing what is happening on the table as well, from not just myself but the people that I am playing against as well. And today is no different, as I've got another gaming day at a mate's place, and we're jumping in and we're playing 3 games of 40k over the course of the day, along with testing out missions and the GW terrain layouts. As Pariah Nexus has dropped, we've got the new balanced starter slate, and we're testing out a whole bunch of stuff there as well. I'm keen to share more details about that with you as well. But before we jump in to today's video, I want to thank everyone who has been subscribing, commenting, liking our videos here on YouTube. Really appreciate that. And I just want to thank everyone who has been supporting us in that manner, being able to unlock community monetization. So now we've got super chats and memberships available for you guys. So feel free to check those out if you do want to support us in that way. So let's jump into the meat and potatoes of today's video. And I want to talk about my new Deathwatch Black Spear Task Force Army list. Now, we have had the next balanced data slate come out, and Deathwatch did receive a few points decreases. Mainly, the Deathwatch veterans dropped by 10 points per 5, and the Watchmaster dropped by 10 points. So in my list, I've tweaked it a little bit, changed a few things out here and there. So here is what I've come up with for the new list. I've swapped a few things around. So we're starting off with the Watchmaster. As per usual, he is our Warlord with the Tome of Ectoclades. He does have the Lord of Deceit ability, so anything looking to use a stratagem within 12 inches of him does increase the cost by 1 now, and if you follow the WTC FAQ, I think it's going to be predominantly game-wide now. That model does have to be your army's warlord to gain the benefit of the Lord of Deceit rule. Then I've also got a Apothecary Biologus with the Beacon Angelus, so still being able to give his unit deep strike and rapid ingress for 0 CP. Then we've got just a staple lieutenant with Storm Shield, Mastercrafted Power Sword, and Neo Volkite pistol in there as well. Followed up in our battle line units, we have got 2 units of 5 Deathwatch veterans with a Xenophase blade and 2 long vigil melee weapons with 3 bolt guns, and then 2 Inferno heavy bolters in there as well. Then we've got a full 10-man unit of Deathwatch veterans with 4 Deathwatch Thunderhammers, 6 Astartes shields for that 4-up invulnerable save, a single Xenophase blade, and then 5 long vigil melee weapons in there to finish out that unit. Then when we look at the other units that we've also taken, we've taken 2 units of 5 Assault Intercessors with jump attacks with power fists and 2 plasma pistols in each unit. We've then got a unit of 10 Sternguard veterans in there, or with just Sternguard bolt rifles. In addition to that, we have also got 6 Eradicators with the 2 multi-melters in there as well. We've also then got the 3 Devastator Centurions with the twin las cannons and the Centurion missile launchers, the obligatory 5 Infiltrators to screen off the backfield with the Feel No Pain, and the comms array for if I spend a CP on them on a 5-up, I get that CP back. I've changed up the last little pieces of this list. I've dropped the Storm Raven. The Storm Raven went up to 280 points from 260, and really it did mean that it's 100 points more than the Corvus Blackstar. So I decided, you know what, let's try out the Corvus Blackstar. The real difference between the two is that I don't have the capacity to transport a Dreadnought in the Corvus. I also lose the twin multi-melter, but it has the exact same thing as what the Storm Raven has. The only difference outside of that is it's got stealth instead of the -1 damage. You can also give it either ignores cover or the smoke keyword to be able to use the smoke screen or smoke launchers stratagem to give it -1 to hit and the benefits of cover. So I went with the ignores cover for the benefit of my shooting and my shooting output there. It can also, when it flies over a unit, you roll 6d6, and for every 5 up, it does a mortal wound to a unit when it makes a move over a unit as well. Didn't really come up when I played it, but it is still some good utility when you use it as an aircraft. I'm primarily using the same way that I use the Storm Raven in the hover mode. Then I've still got the Whirlwind in there with Hunter Killer Missile, Storm Bolter, and then with the extra points that I had from dropping the Raven down to the Corvus Blackstar, and the extra 30 points that I did gain from, the dropping of the Watchmaster and the veterans, I've actually been able to throw in a Predator Annihilator, so all las cannons, Hunter Killer Missile, and Storm Bolter on that as well to bring my list to 2,000 points. Now, how we actually run the day was we had a couple of preset pairings as to who was going to play who on what round. We had preset missions that we're testing for Gonghammer coming up that I am running at the back end of November, start of December. And then also we are testing the new Pariah Nexus layouts. And so this mission, the first one up, I was playing up against Paul. We played on GW layout number 1 for Pariah Nexus. For the mission, we were playing Burden of Trust with prepared positions and search and destroy. So it meant that you could use go to ground and heroic intervention for 0 CP on your battle line units. Now, Paul was running Imperial Knights, really staple list. He had 3 big knights and I think 4 or 5 armigers, and I believe he also may have had an assassin in there, quite possibly. Yes, he did have a Vindicare in his list as well. We'll have the list all linked down in the description for you guys to have a look at as we talk through each of these games. So Imperial Knights is one of those armies that I've never really felt confident going into and playing against, and so it was really solid game to actually flex my Deathwatch list and the knowledge that I have seeing Imperial Knights being played and how to necessarily play against them now, to be able to use that information to actually play quite a good game. So we're going to go to the table and we're going to see how things look at the start of the game and then also at the end, and then we're going to come back and have a bit of a chat about the game as well. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, so game 1 is underway here at the game day. Playing up against Paul, who's running Imperial Knights, Canis Rex, 2 other big knights, and a whole bunch of armigers. I've just finished my turn 1, so I did forget to run some stuff. And an armiger's already been killed, which was deployed up over here. We did get it with the Predator and the Whirlwind oathing it. So running the Deathwatch list, changed out the Storm Raven for a Corvus Blackstar and threw in the Predator, so with the points changes. So we'll see how that goes and how it goes into the Knights this game. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, so that is the end of game 1 against Paul. Very brutal game from both sides. Deathwatch surprisingly did well into the Knights, interestingly. The big melee brick with the assistance of the Eradicators were able to kill Canis. Still the 2 big knights left, but the Predator and Centurions were able to whittle down the small knights, so Hector is still alive on the battlefield. The game swung, end of the turn, for battle round 5. I had 36 points, and Paul managed to pull out close to 20 points to get ahead of me for a 36 to 43 point win. So yeah, really interesting mission, definitely a low scoring one. And the other game that was playing in the room did get low scoring as well. So interesting test for Gonghammer. But yeah, so we're going to have lunch and then we'll be back for round 2. Alrighty, so this game was actually quite a brutal one. I think there was some really good high points in this matchup where I was able to rapid ingress the Eradicators to be in a really safe spot, and so they could move their 5 inches and be able to shoot something in my following turn to really get a lot of damage onto something, and that something was Canis Rex, because Canis Rex was in Paul's list, and so I was able to throw the Eradicators at Canis Rex, as well as the melee brick with the Watchmaster being able to advance and charge during the go turn with sustained hits, and they were able to actually kill Canis Rex in a single turn. I didn't necessarily have too much of a problem dealing with the armigers. I did have my Corvus Blackstar out on my left-hand flank with the Stern Guard, which meant that I really didn't do too much with that. A lot, of that was mitigation, but I really didn't find I had too much of a problem with the Predator being able to kill a couple of armigers. I did have to, unfortunately, throw away the Centurions, which I think was the big mistake in this game, to kill some armigers and bait out the bigger knights, even though to get the second big knight to engage and get Canis to actually engage as well it was kind of like, okay, I need to throw something out that he's going to take the bait and come into my lines. And so, yeah, it was just one of those things where I was able to just chip away. The score was 36-43 Paul's way. Paul scored more on primary compared to his secondaries. I scored more secondaries compared to my primary. And that was really the way that the game went, was that the difference between our scores was more. I scored less primary than what Paul scored on his secondaries, because we tied for scores on primary, and for Paul scoring primary and for me scoring secondary. I found that the layout was pretty good. Now, we didn't necessarily play with proper, WTC or GW actual terrain for some of the elements, which was fine. We gave it a good crack and had some fun with some different terrain, which I always love doing. And so it was really good to see how that actually played on the table. And, Paul is a great opponent, and it was a really fun matchup against Knights, and to actually play against someone who knows how to play Knights, and also to be able to be effective in such a way where I was actually able to destroy Paul's army down to, I think, Sir Hector that was still alive, and I think the two big Knights. I think I got rid of all the War Dogs, the Vindicare, and Canis Rex. So I was able to utilize all the resources to get a lot of his army dead, but there was that 800 to 900 points in those two big Knights that I just couldn't deal with. And so, yeah, ended up losing that game. The other game that was played was my next two opponents, but also felt as though this mission was quite low scoring. It wasn't really an enjoyable game overall. So that was something that we learnt from playing this mission, and it's something that I'll take into my preparations for Gonghammer, which is going to be great. The layouts did feel good for the most part from both games as well. So now we are going to be jumping into game two. Now, game two, I'm playing up against Brad, who is running a Dread Mob Orc list. And it's not just any Dread Mob Orc list. It is a Stomper, a Gargantuan Squigoth, 2 units of 3 killer cans. It's got a whole bunch of looters, boys. It's got a mech behind the Stomper, Storm Boys in there and such as well. So just a lot of OC, a lot of bodies being transported by the Stomper and the Gargantuan Squigoth, that I looked at it and went, oh no. This is going to be tough. This was a really tough matchup. I ended up going first in the game, which I probably didn't want to have happen with my list. We'll have a quick video in a second showing you what deployment and such was like. I didn't grab a video at the end just because we were a bit, swapping things over pretty quickly for the next game. Now, the mission we were playing was Terraform with the Stopwards mission rule, which meant battle line, can action, and shoot an action within engagement range, as well as also having Crucible of Battle deployment. We also played on layout 6, which was one of the newer layouts, which was really good to test how that felt going into this game. So we're going to see what the game looks like at the start, and then, we'll come back after that and share a bit more about my thoughts of how that game went. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, so game 2, I'm playing up against Brad, who is running Orcs, and yes, Orc Knights basically, which has got a Stomper and a Gargantuan Squigoth. It's brutal. It's gonna be a brutal game. So I've already lost the Predator in turn 1 from the Stomper, which is kind of nuts. The mission is Terraform with Stalwarts on Crucible of Battle. So we're already in turn 2. Gonna be really interesting to see how the Deathwatch go this game. But yeah, we'll see what happens, and we'll come back at the end of the game. So even though I went in this game being like, oh crap, I don't know how I'm going to deal with the Stomper, I don't know how I'm going to deal with the Gargantuan Squigoth, the game was really over by turn 3. Me going first meant that I could not get any shots off turn 1 and just kind of stage in position. Brad got a really solid advance on the Stomper to get in the midfield turn 1 and just blow a few things away, killed the Predator, killed a few other units here and there. Squigoth moved up on his right-hand flank, my left flank. And so when the go turn happened, I was like, I've got to make this happen. He didn't pop the War turn 2, which was when my go turn was, and he did say that was a mistake. He should have popped it. He did forget about my Eradicators. So when I rapid ingressed my Eradicators, brought them in, I was able to deal with the Squigoth with the Eradicators and the melee brick, but then the Stomper just was untouched, and it had taken some damage, I'll give it that, but really at the end of it, it just ended up decimating. I really didn't have too many things really left on the table, and so it was really telling by the end of turn 3. Brad actually won the game quite convincingly, 58-12 on this mission. I think I've got to replay this mission, to be perfectly honest, to test it out properly. Same with the layout. Like, I just felt as though this game was hilarious and Brad's list was funny as all heck. I just did not have the damage capacity to deal with both a Gargantuan Squiggoth that had 30 wounds and a Stomper that had 40 wounds, both being high toughness and having the weapons and the abilities to actually be able to kill both of them in the in not even the one turn, but just deal with them as I lost stuff as well, which really, it was a great fun game. We had a massive laugh over it. So yeah, it was good fun to play against something like that, and see that yes, it is strong, and if you're not careful, it can catch you out. So that's something to be aware of, that I'm going to be looking at going forward. Now, going into my third game, I was playing up against my mate Bren with Thousand Suns. Now, the mission we were playing was Linchpin with Hidden Supplies, so an extra objective on the field, as well as playing Tipping Point, one of the new deployment. And so I was playing, my Deathwatch list, and Bren was bringing a very different Thousand Suns list than what he had previously run against me. Didn't have any Demon Princes, didn't have Forge Fiends, no Mutalith. It just had lots of characters, I think 25 rubrics, had 20 cultists as well as 10 blue horrors, in addition to Magnus. This was a really, really solid game, and I'll share a bit why after the intro video, but we were playing on layout number 7, so it was very straight lined in terms of how that looks, and it was great fun to be able to play on that map and have a great game with that one as well. So we'll have a look at what the game looked like to start off with, and then I'll talk a bit more about that game afterwards.
Alrighty everyone, game 3 of the day, and I'm playing up against Bren, who you've seen on the channel before. He's playing his Thousand Suns, a bit of a different build. Infantry heavy, 65 infantry models split between 8 different units. The mission is Linchpin with Hidden Supplies and Tipping Point deployment, testing out GW layout 7. So yeah, it's going to be really solid to see how this game goes and see how the Deathwatch go into this Thousand Suns variant. We'll be back at the end of the game with how it goes.
Alrighty, so this game, I will say, is probably the best Deathwatch go turn I've ever had, except for one thing that I made a mistake with. So Magnus had moved up on my left-hand flank behind that massive tall ruin on layout 7. Now, you can get a very thin firing lane from the opposite side of the long table edge to that side of the board from, that side. And so I'd picked up the Centurions turn 1, and I was like, okay, he's put Magnus there, I can get a beat on. Let's do this. So Centurions teleported into the spot where they can all see outside of Overwatch range. I then also had moved the Predator up so it could get a beat on to Magnus as well. Then we had moved the Corvus Blackstar forward, and I deployed the Stern Guard out in such a way that it was outside of 12 inches of Ahriman's brick that they could see on an angle too in the ruin. And then the only unit that I did not move out that I should have on my right hand flank was the melee brick. I conserved the melee brick, and that actually cost me the game. I'd also brought in the Eradicators into Bren's home field, and I was able to deal with his Carnivore. His War Dog Carnivore was the other unit he has in his list. The Eradicators dealt with that with ease. The Stern Guard with Kraken rounds for additional -1 AP and extra 6 inches range were able to single-handedly kill the 10-man rubric unit and Ahriman down to a single wound. I had to use the Corvus a little bit on Ahriman with the Hurricane Bolters just to force through saves and kill Ahriman from him, but with the Corvus Blackstar, the Predator, and the Centurions all also going into Magnus, who was the second oath target with the tome. So Ahriman's brick was the first, Magnus was the second. I got Magnus down to 3 wounds in a single turn. With that go turn, if that melee brick had have come out on that right hand flank that turn, it would have meant that I would have stopped Bren scoring 23 points on primary turn 2, which he did. So again, I went first in this game. I was able to do a lot of stuff, but because I conserved the melee brick instead of risking it on that flank and just threat saturating that flank and really decimating it, it meant that I didn't score a lot of primary this game, and I ended up losing this game 35-88. Bren just took it away with primary and just absolutely obliterated me on primary. In terms of secondary game, I did score 26 points there, but Bren scored 33. So again, the secondaries weren't really doing too great for me there either. Still 26 points is great, but you want to be getting over 30 with tacticals. And I just found I ran out of resources. There was a few units I didn't play correctly, but the go turn, having spoken with Bren after this game, he was really worried after a certain point, and I'd almost shaken him. And he's not easy to shake as a player. He's very upbeat, very like, okay, this is great, let's have some fun, and really solid. And so yeah, I did end up losing that game. I did lose all 3 games on the day, but I feel a lot more confident with this Deathwatch list now, especially in Pariah Nexus. And I feel like there's just one unit, and Bren pointed out to me, and I felt it throughout the weekend, the Predator Annihilator is just not cutting it in this list. It's not carrying its weight. Now I've got to look at maybe a few other options. Do I maybe go down the route of a unit of Devastators? Do I look at a unit of Intercessors or Assault Intercessors to hold my home field with an Ancient, because I do have that 130 points to use? Or do I then instead go and grab a unit of Inceptors that are going to be able to deal with chaff units in the backfield as well, come in deep strike within 3 inches, basically heavy bolters with sustain 2 already, so they're going to be really solid. So there's a lot of options that I can throw into this list for the 130 points. I think I'm going to have to test a few out. But I think with this new list, what works really well is still the Corvus Blackstar. I think is actually a really good unit. 180 points for what it does. A twin las cannon, 2 storm strike missiles at strength 10 -2 flat 3 damage, being -1 to hit innately. I actually think it's a really good unit now as well. It can hover, it can ignore cover, which is really solid. So it can put on a lot of damage there when you need it in the various areas. Also being able to get within 12 inches with the Hurricane Bolts, just throwing out 24 shots. Reroll and hit if it's the Oath target. Twin linked to wound is just, it does things which it shouldn't be able to do. And it's just so good. So I really think that the more I play this Deathwatch list, the better I'm getting with it. And I definitely reckon I've got a really solid build here. There's just a few tweaks here and there I'm considering, dropping that Predator for something, as well as maybe changing out the 5-man veteran units. Instead of being bolt gun close combat weapon, I'm thinking actually shield close combat weapon, and just having the 2 Infernus heavy bolters instead. And so just really testing something like that out is what I'm going to be looking at doing next. But yeah, that is kind of the synopsis and the brief overview of the game day that I had a couple of weeks ago with Brad, Paul, and Bren. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, well, that is going to be it for today's video. I want to thank each and every one of you for sticking right the way through. I really do appreciate you guys watching our content and enjoying the videos that we do create here on the network amongst our tournament coverage and our hobbying focused content as well. If you do have any feedback on our Wargaming highlights video, feel free to leave it down in the comment section below. If you did enjoy the video, feel free to hit with a like. And if you haven't already, feel free to hit that subscribe button, turn that notification bell on so you're able to be notified as to when we are releasing more content here on the network going forward, as well as when we are doing the multi-streaming for our tournament coverage coming up at a multitude of events that we're going to be at, which is going to be absolutely awesome. And if you feel like joining us on the purple side, feel free to head over to Twitch, search up the Australia's TWN channel, and you'll be able to find us over there where you can hit the follow button there, and you'll be notified as to when we do weekly hobbying sessions with myself, or maybe we've got a tournament preview that we're doing and such, as well as the other side of the tournament coverage that we have going as well. And I also want to thank all of our financial supporters, whether you are supporting us on YouTube, whether you're supporting us on Twitch, or whether you're supporting us via the Ko-Fi. I really appreciate each and every one of you guys financially contributing to the work that we do here at the ATWN and the tournament coverage that we provide to the Australian tournament scene. Just as a bit of a PSA, Twitch does take 50% of the monetization, YouTube takes 30%, and Ko-Fi takes 10%. So if you're wanting to make sure that the majority of your money does come to us, YouTube or Ko-Fi are the better two options out of the three, but I really do appreciate everyone who does subscribe on all of the platforms to financially support us. It really does help cover our costs, and it allows us to do a lot more things and plan for a lot more things as well in the future, which is going to be absolutely awesome. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope to catch you in the next one.